In this moment of divine stillness, let us open our minds to the heavenly whispers that guide us toward eternal peace. Selected 1. Someone is destroying evidence in your neighborhood right now as you read this. They're destroying records that show what they did to you, erasing gadgets that hold recordings of their conspiracy meetings, and frantically calling accomplices who are beginning to realize that their meticulously crafted web of falsehoods is about to fall apart. However, they are unaware that it is already too late. All of the files they are frantically attempting to remove were duplicated months ago. Federal agents have been listening in on every communication they believe they are having behind closed doors. Every crime they think they have concealed is going to be painfully revealed. There are 3 investigations coming together in your neighborhood. Even seasoned law enforcement will be shocked by the intersections of the cases being built by 3 different agencies. The medical fraud investigators investigating the poisoning conspiracy, the Organized Crime Task Force mapping the secret society, and the Financial Crimes Unit tracking the stolen inheritance. Until your case made the connections, none of them were aware of the others. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. You must know how this started because where it started dictates how it will end, and the conclusion will change not only your life, but also the lives of all others who believe they knew you. When you come and depart, that neighbor who always appears to be there, their behavior was not amicable. They were monitoring you, recording your habits, and sending information about your whereabouts to a coordination center that most people aren't even aware exists. In reality, every wave, every casual discussion, and every seemingly regular moment was used to gather intelligence for those with very precise intentions to exploit your weaknesses. Your designated handler has been the helpful neighbor who comes across as reliable. It was their responsibility to win your trust, discover your secrets, and set themselves up to take advantage of you in the last stage of their scheme. You were to be completely destroyed at the end of that operation, financially, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Despite seeming to be a member of their network, the quiet neighbor, the one you hardly notice, has been playing a completely other game. In reality, they have been recording everything, taking pictures of the evidence, capturing conversations, and compiling a case file that will eventually serve as the basis for the biggest conspiracy prosecution your community has ever seen. The criminal neighbors were unaware that their calm co-worker was employed by a different boss. They believed they belonged to an untouchable secret society, but in reality, forces they never anticipated were studying, cataloging, and getting ready for harvest. They have been turned against by the same surveillance network that they utilized against you. They have repurposed and infiltrated the same coordinating mechanisms they used to organize your destruction. In their own words, the confidence they had in one another has been used as a weapon to document their crimes. And it starts very soon. Yes, chosen one. Very soon. They will discover that the person who brought them all down was the neighbor they trusted the most. Yellow heart if you feel the divine love. Now is the time to share. Click the super thank you button on YouTube to contribute $50 or more and help us spread God's blessings. What you do is being watched and serves as a seed, and in the future it will come back to you a millionfold. Everything you believe to be true about your town will be reframed by what you're about to discover. The harassment you have been subjected to was not an isolated act of criminal action. Rather, it was a planned operation carried out by a covert organization that has dominated your community for more than 3 decades. They don't have ceremonies or dress in robes. They use reputable companies, civic associations, and community groups, such as charity drives, neighborhood associations, and local business networks, as the ideal front to plan the annihilation of people they have selected, including you. Some of organizations have served as fronts for planning assaults, disseminating intelligence about targets they have designated for eradication, and laundering stolen funds. By using respectability as a cover for actions that would appall anyone who learned of their genuine intent, they have been operating covertly. What will surprise you the most, though, is that they have been infiltrated from the start. Their operations weren't discovered by chance by the federal task force. Since the beginning, They have been monitoring this society. There is now enough evidence from an undercover operation that started decades ago to completely destroy the network in a single, well-planned attack. They will be found guilty based on the minutes of the society's own meetings. They believed their bank records were safe, but they have been duplicated and examined. They thought their communication methods were encrypted, but they have been decrypted and observed. Every planned crime, person they targeted, and money they stole has been documented in anticipation of the future. For years, 3 families have been employed by their organization, posing as devoted members while really acting as law enforcement's eyes and ears. To obtain the proof required to bring about justice, these families placed their reputations and personal safety at risk. Their kids learned that their parents were leading double lives to keep those like you safe. You will find out the names of these hero families when the arrests start. You'll learn that some of the individuals you believed to be adversaries were, in fact, protectors. And you'll realize that you were spared from attacks that would have destroyed you, since the worst of the plans were thwarted by invisible guardians. Not only is the money picked, but it is also hidden. It has been purposefully stolen, systematically moved from accounts that ought to have brought you wealth to platforms intended to finance your own repression. The very attacks intended to drive you to death or desperation have been funded by the inheritance you should have received years ago. However, the theft is more than just financial. Your identity, background, and ties to relatives who have been searching for you have all been taken. To make you seem unworthy of inheritance, documents were falsified. In order to portray you as unstable or incapable, records were fabricated. They made up stories to make family members believe you were dead or dangerous. For more than 10 years, various family members have been looking for you. They have posted ads, employed detectives, and even promised rewards for information regarding your location. The society intercepted every lead they pursued. Each investigator they employed was coerced into stopping the search by threats or compromise. However, one investigator, a former federal agent who specializes in cases similar to yours, could not be purchased or intimidated. This individual has been doing pro bono labor, connecting seemingly unconnected dots and following paper trails that others overlooked. They found that the 17 other missing heirs who are linked to your case were all targeted by the same network for the same reason. This investigator will show up at your house with documentation proving your true identity and inheritance once the arrests start. You'll discover that your imposed humble lifestyle is a hideous deception intended to prevent you from gaining access to resources that would have rendered you uncontrollable. The horrible irony is that they were keeping you from accessing money that exceeds their entire organization while stealing modest sums to finance their harassment of you. While using those same dollars to guarantee your prolonged poverty, they have been robbing someone who ought to be living in wealth. Stress from harassment wasn't the only cause of your health issues. They were the product of intentional poisoning intended to erode your spiritual abilities and make you more easily destroyed. Their network of medical specialists has been methodically putting chemicals that are meant to impair cognitive function, weaken the immune system, and induce psychological instability into your food, surroundings, and even prescription drugs. However, your body is more powerful than scientists anticipated. They didn't grasp the depth of your spiritual defense. You were immune to their poisons rather than falling victim to them. You grew more perceptive to their actions rather than weaker. In fact, every attempt to hurt you made you more sensitive to danger and deceit. In order to gather evidence for attempted murder charges, medical examiners have been looking over your case and examining samples. They have identified a pattern of medical interference that occurs in several healthcare facilities and involves experts who believed they were above the law because of their professions. They are now being prosecuted using the same medical records that they used to record their crimes against you. Every intentional error, tainted therapy, and fraudulent diagnosis has been saved and will be used as evidence of systematic attempted murder in court. When the arrests start, you'll learn that some of the doctors you trusted were actually working to slowly murder you, while others were covertly working against their own best interests to keep you alive. Your unexplained recovery from seemingly hopeless diseases wasn't the result of natural healing. Rather, it was the result of medical personnel intervening to save your life by acting against your own colleagues. Dove brother and sister, everything done in faith is returned in God's abundance. You can donate $100 using the Super Thank You button and be part of this divine call. If your roots are connected to Him, your fruit will be blessed. The deceased had more than just a connection to your inheritance. They were killed with the express purpose of keeping you from discovering the truth about who you are. This someone was your champion and guardian, someone with the authority and means to reveal the whole plot and return what was properly yours. Their fatal accident was a well-planned and flawlessly executed event. From the start, the investigation was managed by society members in positions of power, who made sure the death was declared an accident and the case was promptly closed. Vehicles leave digital evidence that cannot be deleted, but witnesses were either silenced or completely removed. Records created by communications endure even after devices are erased. Even the most advanced money laundering schemes cannot erase the traces left by financial transactions. Additionally, you establish proof of federal offenses that carry life terms when you murder someone to conceal inheritance fraud. The Organized Crime Task Force, the Federal Inheritance Fraud Case, and the Municipal Corruption Inquiry have all been concurrently investigating this death from distinct perspectives. Everyone has been gathering evidence that supports the same conclusion. The society ordered this contract killing to keep you from being restored. The person who died defending you will be identified as soon as the arrests start. You'll learn about the evidence they struggled to protect, the relationships they sought to build, and the future they fought to ensure for you. Their passing wasn't pointless. Rather, it served as the impetus for the completion of all of these inquiries. And you'll see why you sensed a supernatural presence helping you get through your most difficult times. Even after you passed away, they continued to defend you. This conspiracy isn't limited to the area. In towns all around the nation, this franchising business has been destroying chosen ones. They believed they had developed an entirely deniable technology that could eradicate spiritual threats. They created procedures that had worked in dozens of other places for isolation, harassment, poisoning, and eventually eradication. However, they committed a critical mistake in your case. They misjudged the level of attention your issue would receive from higher up. For years, federal authorities have been monitoring this network in hopes of finding a compelling reason to launch a large-scale, well-coordinated operation. They had all they required in your case: unmistakable proof of interstate conspiracy, federal offenses, and violations severe enough to justify the resources required to dismantle the entire organization. For the past 18 months, 3 federal agencies have been collaborating, mapping relationships, intercepting communications, and getting ready for a simultaneous operation that will result in the arrest of members of the organization in 17 separate states. An inquiry that will uncover a network that has killed or disappeared hundreds of chosen people over the course of 3 decades is focused on your neighborhood. Their own success ultimately led to their demise. The more efficiently they operated, the more patterns they produced, the more crimes they committed, the more evidence they produced, and the more victims they killed, the more attention they received from investigators who focus on cases just like these. Soon, when the arrests start in your community, similar operations will be started nationwide at the same time. A society that believed it was impenetrable will find that it has been thoroughly ensnared, well chronicled, and methodically set up for annihilation. They kept records on everything. Every crime they committed against you was documented, filed, and kept in what they believed to be secure systems. Financial records that traced stolen inheritance money, medical records that demonstrated systematic poisoning, communication logs that showed coordination between various agencies and organizations, and meeting minutes that detailed plans for your eradication. But their own monitoring operation produced the most damaging proof. From the start, The system they used to keep an eye on you was hacked and altered to record both their own and your activities. All of the planning sessions were recorded. All the crimes were recorded. Every directive issued and report submitted has been meticulously documented. Databases have been assembled, checked, and cross-referenced. The evidence not only establishes their guilt, but also shows the extent of a methodical and extensive operation that will fundamentally alter the way law enforcement handles instances involving organized conspiracy. Your case will serve as a model for breaking up similar networks all around the world. The irony couldn't be more perfect. The same meticulousness with which they documented your victimization will guarantee their own demise. The legal case against them will be completely unassailable thanks to the same meticulous attention to detail that made their harassment so successful. Federal agents will be gathering stuff that has already been checked and cataloged, rather than searching for evidence, as they simultaneously execute search warrants across 17 states. The arrests will be supported by concrete evidence of conspiracy, murder, fraud, and crimes against humanity rather than by witness statements or oblique linkages. When the time comes, the biggest conspiracy prosecution in local history will center on your neighborhood. People who believed they were untouchable because of their connections and positions will be arrested when multiple federal agencies execute warrants at the same time. The nice neighbor who earned your trust will be taken into custody on charges of inheritance fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. You will face charges of stalking, conspiracy, and violating federal privacy rules against the surveillance neighbor who tracked your travels. The doctors who attempted to poison you will be charged with attempted murder and given life sentences. Everyone will be shocked by the arrest of the quiet neighbor you hardly noticed, who turns out to be the federal agent whose decades-long undercover operation enabled all the other arrests. If you know who they really are, you'll understand why you survived attacks that should have killed you, why your worst foes never quite got their schemes through, and why assistance always appeared to come at the right time. There will be 3 waves of arrests that happen precisely in time. The neighborhood-level operatives, who conducted daily monitoring and harassment, would be taken in the first wave. The mid-level coordinators, who oversaw operations and resource management, will be arrested in the second wave. The society members who ordered the murders and planned the entire plot will be apprehended by the third wave. By the end of the operation, a network that took 30 years to construct will have been simultaneously destroyed in 17 different communities. It will all be made feasible by the breakthrough that was made possible by your case. Perhaps when you have attempted to speak your truth, you have been met with blank looks or outright rejection. Perhaps you felt alone because of inexplicable events. Perhaps you've questioned whether anyone else could possibly relate to what you've gone through. For individuals who have endured hardships and come out on the other side with wisdom that others cannot see, the Obsidian Inner Order offers a haven. We are aware that some events fall outside the realm of what most people believe is appropriate or feasible to talk about. Every week, real people with genuine faces get together live on Zoom to share their tales without passing judgment. This place can accommodate the experiences you've kept to yourself, the patterns you've observed that others ignore, and the intuitive wisdom you've acquired along the way. We comprehend, not just listen. You can listen to our recorded conversations and remind yourself that your perception is legitimate when you're having trouble understanding your experiences and feel deceived by a society that doesn't accept your truth. Become a member of the Obsidian Inner Order, where your voice is heard and your reality respected. 2 persons from your past will show up at your door, Ronro, as the arrests progress and the truth comes to light. They don't happen to be at the same time. Federal agents called both to let them know you were safe, alive, and on the verge of being put back in your proper place. They both wish to get back in touch. They both say they love you, but only one is being honest. When you most needed protection, the first person left you because they were intimidated, compromised, or just unable to understand what was going on. They watched you as you were being attacked. They now wish to make amends in order to gain from your recovery, to guarantee their place in your new life before others do. Although the second individual has their own regrets and feelings of guilt, they will take a different tack. They will admit the seriousness of what was done to you. They will honor your need for space and time to come to terms with these realizations. They will provide assistance without expecting anything in return, love without terms or demands. You will receive private advice regarding your decision from the federal agent who has been protecting you. They will provide you with details about both individuals that will enable you to distinguish between sincere regret and strategic opportunism. They will describe how the conspiracy turned loved ones into unintentional instruments of isolation and harassment by using personal ties as weapons. Your choice between these two will affect not just your level of happiness, but also your ability to carry out the task for which you were created. Pick carefully. Pick one. Persecution has exactly polished your spiritual gifts, enabling you to traverse this period with great insight. You'll learn that everything you believed to be true about who you are was a meticulously crafted deception as the legal process progresses and proof is produced in court. You belong to a bloodline they have been attempting to eradicate for generations. Therefore, you are more than just a regular person who occurred to endanger their business. Since you were stolen from them as a youngster through a custody manipulation that was actually an early society operation, your true family has been looking for you. The persons you referred to as family were either active conspirators to keep you from your origins or unintentional accomplices in your deception. Each branch of your family has been looking into your disappearance from a different perspective, but they have all come to the same conclusion. You are the heir to wealth, property, and power that would have prevented them from destroying you if they hadn't been able to conceal your identity first. In addition to your fortune, the federal probe will return your genuine identity, your actual background, and your ties to relatives who never ceased thinking you were still alive. You'll hear of parents who never gave up on finding their kid, grandparents who left special provisions for your eventual return, and siblings who grew up knowing they had a lost brother or sister. Glowing star, if you want to witness God's miracles, act now. Contribute $100 or more through Super Thank You on YouTube. Your offering is like a seed that comes back to you when planted. Let His light illuminate your steps. Every donation is an echo in His plan. Your spiritual heritage, however, will be the most startling discovery. For ages, your family has produced light workers, mystics, and healers, because they understand that children from your genetic line represent an existential threat to systems of spiritual tyranny and control. Society has been tracing and eradicating your lineage. You were chased because of who you are and what you stand for, not because you were singled out at random. And after surviving their worst attempts to ruin you, you will assume duties and skills developed over many generations of spiritual development. As word gets out about the arrests and the extent of the scheme, there will be a collective awakening in your town that will change everything. People who have trusted their local leaders, institutions, and neighbors will have to face the fact that they have been living under a criminal organization's influence for many years. Some people of the community will be upset at the criminals, at themselves for failing to recognize the warning signs, at the mechanisms that so utterly failed. Others will be frightened, wondering what other lies they have been living under, and they will doubt all they believed to be true about reality and safety. However, your survival and validation will serve as an inspiration to many. They will observe that an individual who was subjected to systematic isolation and attacks not only made it through, but also came out stronger spiritually and with a clearer sense of purpose. They will understand that if justice could be served in your case, it may be served in others. In the aftermath, 3 community healing initiatives will emerge, a transparency council to ensure that such deception can never take root in their community again, a victim support network for others who were targeted but remained silent, and a spiritual awakening movement for people ready to explore gifts they never knew they had. Even though you were the main victim of the scheme, you will find yourself in an unexpected leadership role. You will be in a unique position to lead communal healing because of your spiritual skills, your intuitive awareness of what transpired, and your personal experiences of persecution and vindication. The same seclusion that was supposed to destroy you made you strong enough to stand for yourself when needed, to believe your gut when others were lying, and to keep your honor while corruption was all around you. As you assist in restoring a community founded on truth rather than deceit, these abilities will come in very handy. A fight was being waged in spiritual realms in parallel with the processing of evidence and the making of arrests. You're only starting to see that the plot against you was not just illegal, but also demonic, and it was intended to keep you from carrying out a task that jeopardizes the foundations of spiritual darkness. A systematic onslaught on your spiritual center was responsible for every attack you suffered, betrayal you withstood, and moment you doubted your sanity. They were attempting to corrupt your soul, bend your gifts towards evil, and sever your connection to the divine source that selected you for this work, not merely to embezzle your money or damage your reputation. However, the cosmic principles that govern spiritual battle are beyond our comprehension. They compounded each curse they hurled back to them. Every injury they had in mind came back at them with even more intensity. Every falsehood they spread about you turned into a foretelling of their own fate and character. Throughout this ordeal, you have had 3 spiritual allies fighting for you. The spirit of the protector, who was killed while attempting to reveal the conspiracy, the ancestral guides from your lineage who saw the danger you were in, and the divine forces who recruited human agents to protect and preserve you until justice was done. Their demise was planned in accordance with spiritual laws that made sure justice would be served exactly when a chosen one was prepared to handle triumph appropriately, not in accordance with human inquiry schedules. Before you could use the authority that comes with vindication, you had to be polished by suffering. Now that the spiritual battle is over, you will find skills you never knew you had. Leadership abilities that were weakened by loneliness will surface with divine authority. Intuitive abilities that were hampered by harassment will function with crystal clarity. And healing talents that were stifled by poisoning will resurface in full force. In addition to interest penalties and damages that fully represent the extent of their offenses, the money will be refunded. However, the restoration will go well beyond monetary reparations. Blocked opportunities will reappear with improvements that surpass what you first lost. When the truth is revealed, poisoned relationships will be restored and strengthened. From victim to conqueror, from someone who appeared neurotic to someone whose spiritual sensitivity saved not only you, but a whole community. Your reputation will change. Sabotage professional possibilities will reappear with more benefits, tools, and support networks to increase your influence. However, the most significant recovery will be emotional and spiritual. You'll recall what it's like to be surrounded by people who truly care about your welfare. You'll feel abundance rather than manufactured scarcity, celebration rather than sabotage, and protection rather than persecution. Your restoration will bring about the fulfillment of 3 specific promises. The hidden inheritance will be unveiled and enhanced by decades of accumulated growth. The separated family will be reunited with love that has been heightened by years of loss and longing. And the suppressed mission will be unleashed with resources and support that guarantee its worldwide impact. What appeared to be punishment, isolation, will turn out to be preparation. Every ability you acquired on your own, every power you acquired without help, and every insight you acquired while being attacked were all preparations for roles and opportunities that call for the precise traits that persecution honed in you. Some of your old tormentors will come to you with sincere regret as the legal process progresses and the full extent of their crimes becomes evident. They will describe how they were enlisted, how they were misled about your identity and mission, and how they fell for false information about you that allowed them to take part in your persecution. Others will only show remorse when they are sentenced to prison. Their pleas for forgiveness will be calculated rather than heartfelt once their reputations have been damaged and their own families have rejected them for what they have done. They will be driven more by self-preservation than by a true awareness of the hurt they have caused. Years of deceit have polished your spiritual skills. which will enable you to distinguish between genuine repentance and deliberate manipulation right away. You'll be able to determine who is deserving of pardon and who needs justice, who may be saved and who must bear the full ramifications of their decisions. There will be 3 types of offenders: those who were genuinely duped and voluntarily took part. They will be forgiven and given the chance to turn their lives around. Those who knew better but still took part, they will be given justice with a dash of mercy. And those who planned and took pleasure in your suffering, they will bear the full brunt of the legal and cosmic repercussions. However, your forgiveness will be about releasing yourself from the consequences of their decisions, not about them. You will extend forgiveness because you deserve to be freed from the toxicity of unforgiveness, not because they deserve it. Their punishment is required for justice, but it is not a prerequisite for your spiritual advancement. The whole scope of your quest may eventually overwhelm you. Maybe when you're alone yourself in your repaired home. Maybe when you're reunited with family members who never gave up. Maybe when you witness the first person you helped achieve their own freedom. The child who was taken from their home and made to live under false pretenses will make you cry. You will weep for the young adult who was subjected to attacks without knowing why. You will weep for the lone survivor who endured betrayal after betrayal and held onto the hope that the truth would ultimately come to light. But more often than not, you will weep with thanks for a divine design that is so complex, so flawless, and so well-timed that every aspect of your persecution truly contributed to your eventual elevation. You'll see how every adversary turned into an unintentional ally of your fate, how every assault turned into a fortification, and how every setback turned into a prelude to recuperation beyond your wildest expectations. Tears of grief for what was taken will erase the last vestiges of victim identity. Tears of joy for what was restored will celebrate your emergence into purpose and power. And tears of awe for divine precision will recognize the cosmic forces that orchestrated every detail of your vindication. These tears will wash away decades of accumulated pain. After drying your eyes, you will completely embrace your new identity and start the healing process that your life has been preparing you for. The same awareness that exposed you to their attacks can make you incredibly successful at assisting others in identifying and avoiding similar scams. Recall how we started out with neighbors hastily erasing evidence of their misdeeds, making frantic phone calls, and destroying evidence. They weren't just eliminating copies, they were destroying decoys, which is why their efforts were ineffective from the start. They were never in possession of the actual proof. All the documents they believed to be safe had been duplicated. Everything they thought was private had been watched. All the meetings they thought were confidential had been videotaped. They weren't hiding their tracks when they destroyed the evidence. Rather, they were completing the chain of evidence that investigators required to prove accusations of destruction of justice in addition to all their other crimes. Throughout their scheme, redundant evidence preservation systems had been in place at the same time. Spiritual documentation they never thought feasible, federal monitoring they never suspected, and local surveillance they never noticed. In law enforcement circles, your case will go down in history, not just for the extent of the plot that was revealed, but also for the flawless execution of the evidence preservation process that made prosecution unavoidable. Their convictions will serve as a precedent for decades to come, because every crime they committed was documented so thoroughly. You now realize the more profound reality. The last stage of evidence completeness was actually what appeared to be evidence destruction. Their final step into a trap that had been building for 30 years was what appeared to be their last attempt to evade justice. Home is always found by the chosen. Furthermore, home is never merely a location. No amount of human conspiracies can eventually stop it. It's a mission, a purpose, and a destiny. Greetings from your restoration. Greetings from your summit. Greetings from the life you were destined to lead. Your neighbors believed that they might ruin you. Rather, they made you visible. The conflict is over. You prevailed.